Welcome into a Slice of Life here with me, Eugene Lo, on 938 Live for your dose of do-it-yourself motivation. And what's always hot in Singapore, besides the weather, is job satisfaction. Right? I mean, Singaporeans, I suppose many people in developed societies work very, very hard. It's not just Singaporeans, really. They're obsessed with work. But we seem to be perhaps, living in a pressure cooker society. A lot of expectations on us as well, maybe culturally or, strategically, location-wise or whatever. A lot of factors, right? But Singaporeans do seem to be very, very stressed out about this sort of thing. And anecdotally, when you talk to people, you get a sense of, many people aren't very happy at work, and you kind of wonder why, but of course there are difficulties. So today let's find out about happiness at work, the myth of happiness at work, and also what stresses us out. We'll delve into more of that with Benedict Lim, who is with me here today, Managing Director and Acting Chief Psychologist of iGROW, an award-winning psychological consulting firm specialising in employee well-being. So this is something that you've been doing for a long time now, Ben, so you know quite a lot about it. So tell us about your experience with happiness at work.
Right, thank you, Eugene, and thanks for inviting me to the show. And I think it's interesting because anecdotally, like what you mentioned, there are so many people that just feel so unhappy at work because of the expectations and pressures that they have. And statistically, Singapore has conducted a mental well-being scale and a mental health survey, in fact, about 2 or 3 years ago. And what they have found is that 10% of people in Singapore in their lifetime will go through a mental illness. 10%.
Right, okay.
And
is that, I'm not sure, is that considered high or low? It sounds like it's quite, it's not very high.
It is.
It is high, right.
I think at the overall, if we look across the developing countries, it is really on the trending on the higher side. And
so you're talking about the kind of clinically, diagnosed depression.
That's right.
Okay, right.
That's right.
That is quite high then.
And mental illness in general, which includes the top three are depression, schizophrenia, and there's one more, which is addictions. And at iGROW, we also go to organizations to collect mental health status. And we do a screening tool to find out about the state of the workforce. And what we have found is that 12% of people at work are demonstrating depressive symptoms. 12%. So that's about 1 in 8 people.
Wow. Okay. So obviously these numbers come from the work that you do as well. So you would have quite a good finger on the pulse of what's really happening, the true picture. Because people talk a lot about that, right? Like
That's right.
How Singaporeans hate work and all that sort of thing. But is it really what is the challenge we're really looking at, Ben? I
think there are multifaceted into this issue that we are looking at. I think there's job expectations, there's societal demands, and there's a whole variety of things. And I think underpinning it all in the work that we do, there's that sense of a helplessness that we gather from the people that we work with. They have no choice but to continue working regardless whether it's something that they enjoy or do not enjoy. And it seems to be more of a thing that is appropriate to do. I think what is interesting in Singapore is people just go on doing the work compared to people in Europe where they just take time off to travel in Asia and stuff like that. We don't see a lot of that in Singapore.
Why is that, you think? Is it a Confucian thing? That you kind of I'm working for my family and they need me to work. So that's why I'm gonna. It's painful, but I'm gonna continue on.
I think this is my personal opinion. I think there's two views to it. And on one hand, it could be the culture that we are in, where families place expectations on the individuals to continue to work. It could be personal desire and what is socially appropriate, because I think contextually and culturally there's this kind of behavior of wanting to belong and seeking harmony instead of that individualistic pursuing my needs and wants kind of angle compared to our counterparts in the other parts of the world.
Yes.
Having said that, I think there are the younger group of people that are leaving work that kind of pursue this seeking their own passion kind of an angle. And it's so interesting because I was just having conversations with people at work and they're saying how the young people now have a very different type of mentality, because back in the olden days, when people graduate, the first thing they do is to look for a job.
Yeah.
But right now, before they even graduate, they're looking forward to their grad trip.
Yeah. So that's interesting, right? Do you have numbers then on, the sort of like age groups? People who are dissatisfied with their jobs, they tend to be in the older age groups, not so much affecting the younger ones?
No, unfortunately, we do not have hard data. But I think from the research that is conducted around the world, the highest job dissatisfaction is amongst people that are younger than 25. And people that are above 60 years old tend to report a higher level of happiness or satisfaction at work.
Okay.
It could be because that they are seeking for things that they would like or they would enjoy, and they are still exploring for greener pastures.
It sounds logical also. I mean, this reminds me of something that one of my guests, I think it was Tan Chet Meng of Google. He came in and he said, I hope I'm attributing this correctly. My memory doesn't work very well sometimes. But yes, one of my guests anyway. Right. And he shared something about how the 4 stages of life and happiness, whatever, right? You just always start off with struggle, right? And then as you move through that, then you get, finally at the end, is surrender, which is like kind of like the peace life, So it sounds like it works in that sense as well. When you're a young person starting out in your job, you're struggling because you don't know what you want, whether it's this, and then you find out, maybe it doesn't align with your values, and then finally you get it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And probably at the later years in your life, it's a bit easier to find contentment and probably gratitude in things that has happened.
Yeah, but is this a good thing though? I mean, that these younger people are, pursuing their passions, not thinking so much, not encumbered by the mindset that perhaps the older people are. Do you think this is a good sign that this might lead to better jobs, this job satisfaction in the future for them? Or?
Depending on which angle we take. If we take from the angle of the individuals themselves, I think it's a wonderful journey to start exploring on things that you are really passionate and really love to do. But taking on the angle of the employers, it becomes a problem, because then they need to find new ways to keep the employees engaged.
Right, and it's like the employers get stressed then.
Yes, that's right.
We'll continue to chat with Benedict Lim, who is Managing Director and Acting Chief Psychologist of iGROW, an award-winning psychological consulting firm specialising in employee well-being. More about happiness at work. Coming up, we'll talk more about what the main things perhaps contributing to unhappiness at work, and also, of course, we'll go into what can precipitate that sort of satisfaction and fulfillment in our workplace. That's coming up here on A Slice of Life Hour with me, Eugene Loh, on 938 Live. We're deconstructing happiness at work, or attempting to, as much as possible in the given time that we have. And my guest is Benedict Lim, Managing Director and Acting Chief Psychologist of iGROW, an award-winning psychological consulting firm specializing in employee well-being. Now, I'd like to pick up on a point earlier that you made, Ben, about how, studies and research that you've done, as part of your work, have shown that, a lot of Singaporeans kind of like feel unhappy at work or dissatisfied with their jobs, but feel there is a need for them to keep soldiering on, and bear the pain or whatever, why do you think that is so? Or do you have some stats or numbers?
Right, and I think to address this, because the reasons to why people feel that way, that they need to pursue and carry on despite the unhappiness, could be a wide variety, which includes what the personal desires and stuff like that. And I'll probably address it at the root level, because my training is in cognitive behavioral therapy. So basically it's about how our thinking influence our feelings and our actions. And one of the first myths that people of happiness at work is this idea that things are going to get better. So these are some of their thinking. And I remember working with some young lawyers and professionals that start out in law firms that need to put in very long hours, 12, 13, 14, 18 hours days. And in their mind, what keeps them going is that when I become an associate, when I become the next stage, when I progress in my career, things are going to get better. I just need to endure and just stick on with this.
This is the sort of thinking that powers toxic relationships as well. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's quite similar in that sense. So is it a good or bad?
There's this paradox.
The terms good and bad, but yeah.
Yeah, there's this paradox. I mean, personally, there's this whole mantra about kind of following your heart and beginning with the end in mind. So some people maybe take it to the extreme when it becomes counterproductive, where it kind of fuels them forward. And when we look at happiness at work as a moment-to-moment kind of an experience, all this gets compromised because they are looking forward, and ironically, this pushes them forward to bear and to endure the pain that they're going through, thinking that things are going to get better. But are things really going to get better? I'm not so sure. Some people struggle all the way to the retirement, thinking that when I retire, I can enjoy life, only to realize that the next day after retirement, what can they do with their time? They can enjoy and meet their friends for 1 week, for 1 month, for 6 months, 1 year. What happens next?
Right, okay.
So that's the first myth, that things are going to get better.
Or they may perhaps accept a position that, they immediately regret. But then because they don't want to appear, so many reasons, right? You don't want to appear like you're giving up, or you feel that, by going through that period, after 2 years, you'll get to that position that you really want, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's very hard. It's very hard to say these reasons are good or bad, right or wrong, because to the individual, they can be quite noble, they can be quite, and in some instances, it does happen. Yeah. Eventually they get there.
Yeah.
So all the years of suffering were worth it, or were they, So it's tough. It's tough. Yeah, we're beginning to see there are a lot of reasons for that. Yeah. But of course, then, then it boils down to really then the individual. Then how much can you really take, right?
And adding to that is really what is most important to you in your life. Because sometimes in the pursuit of that future happiness, we compromise the moment-to-moment joy that we have with our family, with our loved ones. We miss the growing up years with our children.
Yes.
And we neglect the things that are really key.
Correct.
Only to regret it. So there's no hard and fast rule, but the key is what is important.
Yes.
If pursuing future happiness is important to you, and you are still enjoying the moment-to-moment happiness in the pursuit, then that's great.
Yeah, right? I mean, coming to that, you really have to get barrel into the core of what you're really doing it for, because, superficially you might think, okay, I'm doing it for my family, I'm doing it so that I can leave them loads of money, when I, whatever. But then are you compromising or then sacrificing your quality time with them, at the moment that you will never get back, So you really have to weigh a lot of things, right? It's getting really fascinating here on a Slice of Life hour, but we'll have to go for the news. We'll come back in about 15 minutes to chat more with Benedict Lim, Managing Director and Acting Chief Psychologist of iGROW, at award-winning psychological consulting firm specialising in employee well-being. I'm Eugene Low on a Slice of Life hour on 938 Live, and we continue with this in about 15 minutes. Getting your dose of do-it-yourself motivation on a Monday. This is a Slice of Life hour with me, Eugene Low, and every Monday my guest comes in to fill up our emotional cup, mine as well. I'm very fortunate. I've got a great job. Benedict Lim, Managing Director and Acting Chief Psychologist of iGROW, an award-winning psychological consulting firm specializing in employee well-being, and that's exactly what we're talking about today. Employee well-being.
Right.
So tell us about happiness at work, because it's a very big thing with Singaporeans. We're always talking about our work, and there's a lot of talk about how Singaporeans overwork and that sort of thing. And then it is surprising that in an age or in a culture where we feel sort of like empowered, we are free, basically, right? That people feel this compulsion to stay in jobs that they really find miserable, you know. So we talked a bit about that earlier. So just briefly recap about what are some of the reasons why people are so unhappy at work.
Right, and you know, the figures are actually quite stark, and we talked about earlier how 1 out of 10 people in Singapore go through a mental illness, and in the workplace is about 12% of people at work that go through depression or showing signs of depression. And one of the key reasons, if we were to go down deeper into the core, could be this myth that they have that they need to just carry on, things are going to get better. And we talked earlier as well of how this thinking kind of fuel them as a huge paradox towards life in the future happiness, while they may neglect the day-to-day joy and happiness.
Yeah, basically you're sacrificing your present for something that might not even happen.
Yeah, right. And also not to say that the future happiness is something that is bad, but it's really to maintain a balance of how we can maintain our moment-to-moment joy and satisfaction while working towards what we want in the future.
Yes.
And having said all this about this myth and all this unhappiness at work, I think the key really is how do we then restore and how do we empower ourselves to find that happiness in our life. And from research at iGROW, we have this acronym that helps people to remember, and it's formed by the acronym CLAPS, C-L-A-P-S-S. And one of the reasons why we choose this is because we think that people clap when they are happy, like at a birthday party when people receive an award. And so what is this? C stands for choose, L stands for laugh, A for appreciate, P for praise, the first S for strength, and the last S is for skills. So to start it all off, the key thing is for us to choose to be happy, because no one can force us or push it down our throat, all the things, and it's really fundamental upon that choice that we have. And if we start to choose to be happy, then everything will start to fall into place. And this...
Yes, I mean, I would just like to get you to elaborate more on that, because it's something that, yes, we hear quite a bit about, but, you know, some people are confounded, you know, how do you actually choose to be happy, right? You know, so, but could you give me your perspective, Ben?
Because, like I shared earlier, that my training is in cognitive behavioral therapy, so thinking influences our feelings and our actions. Like your show always says, change your perspective and change your life.
Yes.
And I think the key thing is if we begin with this idea that, oh, things are going to be bad and unhappy and I'm going to be subjected to abuse or neglect and stuff like that, then it's going to fuel a whole myriad of negative emotions, and the behavior will follow suit. And talking about how do we then practically turn this around, knowing that thinking is the key, is not to go pursuing in life, always checking what we are thinking about, because if we always do that, it will be so tiring. But really, for us to be aware of what our thoughts are when we experience negativity, when we feel down, when we feel sad, depressed, anxious, those will be the moments that we need to check in. What could be my thought that is fueling this? And when in those moments when we are depressed, and when we start to think of what are my thoughts, it's really to ask, is it fair for me to have this thought? And sometimes we could receive a lashing at work from our bosses. And if we were to be thinking that the boss hates me, then probably we would generate that anxiety, and it would result in the behavior that would move us away from the boss. But sometimes it could, if we were to change that thinking, because it creates a negative emotion of anxiety, if we were to change that thinking that maybe boss had a bad day today, and immediately, if you were to hold that thought, maybe it's no longer anxiety, but it could be one that would be of empathy, for you to think of ways, the behavior that follows would be one of how to encourage him.
And I asked you to clarify that for us, Ben, is because a lot of people are very cynical about this thing. When you tell them you can choose happiness, they're always like, yeah, right, you know, or, you know, can we really be happy all the time? Is it a button we press and then we're happy all the time? You know, when we're talking about this, are we? Is Benedict happy all the time? And that's not the point of it, right? It's not that we are happy all the time. When we choose, when we say we choose happiness, we're simply choosing a more empowering meaning from a situation that might be stressful for us. Then and we think about it, is it fair? So we think about, on hindsight, a lot of things shouldn't affect us. Like, why are we allowing this person to make us angry or unhappy, right? So then we find what is the logical thing, and then we choose the positive emotion or whatever. Yeah,
that's right. And from what researchers have found, 50% of how happy we are is determined by our genes. So there are some people that are happier than others, that are more likely to be pessimistic in the light of a situation, which leaves 10% of how happy we are determined by circumstances. If I plan to go on a trip to Bangkok and suddenly there's that meltdown, I can't fly, it's going to affect my happiness, which leaves 40% of it that is within our control. And that is the key that we want to choose to focus on, that 40%. And it's going to make a huge difference, and it can start with our thinking, the choice that we make.
All right, great. So that's the C, choose to be happy.
That's right.
Right? Okay, next one is laugh.
Laugh, because when we have that positive emotions of that gratitude, of that joy and contentment, then it would result in that positive disposition in ourselves as well. And one of the clearest way of experiencing positive emotions is to laugh, to find opportunity to smile. And maybe we know intuitive that laughter is the good medicine, but very few of us put laughter into our life, to set time aside for it. The closest that we ever plan to laugh could be to watch a comedy or to call a friend.
Yeah.
But the key really is to find opportunities for us to smile and to laugh in our life.
Yeah.
So that's that laughter.
We really do take a lot of things too seriously, I mean, we say, and we all know about the benefits of laughter, and yet we feel like we shouldn't fake it, but you really should, because again, this is one of those things where a physical thing can feed into that psychological.
That's right.
Yeah.
And begin with a smile. And this is one of the challenge that we are creating at the workplace. And the challenge is to smile at people. And from research, 50% of the people will smile back at you. So try it. Smile to 10 people and try to do that experiment to see how you would feel when people reciprocate that with a smile.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's that laughter. And A is for appreciate. Thinking of the good things that happen. And I think in your show you've talked a lot about gratitude, and I need not expand any more about that. Appreciating. And P is for praising others, because they find that happy people are seldom alone. They always have others around them, but it is non-conclusive whether is it people that bring them happiness, or because they are happy, that's why people are drawn to them. But the key is, with that positive relationships, it can definitely have an impact on our well-being. So if that is the case, we need to understand how do we build connections, and people desire recognition.
Yes.
So praising others, catching others doing right is one of the strategies for us to become happy. Praise. And the next one is strength. Strength talks about doing what you are good at as frequently as possible. And the key then is to know what you are good at. In my work at the workplace, a lot of times people struggle to answer the question, what their strengths are. And for those people, the listeners that are out there that are wondering, what is my strength? May I propose an experiment that they need to go to as many people as possible, their friends, people that they call friends, and ask them what are 3 things that are good about them. And the key is to go to different groups, because who we are at home, at work, with our friends, with our peers, with our classmates are all different. So when we go to all these people and collect these 3 things that are my strengths, the one that comes up the most often is likely to be your strength. So ask your friends, and they will tell you what your strengths are. So that's that S. And finally, is
and you
skills.
should play up that strength at work rather than playing it down, right? Because for example, some people their strength is their humor. They're really funny people, but sometimes at work they think they have to be very serious, and that's what's dragging them down emotionally, but they don't think about it. That's why they don't know what it is.
That's right, exactly. And of course, to just put the balancing view is to do it at the right time, at the right place, appropriate behavior. And but really, is really to know what your strengths are and to play up and utilize it as frequently as possible.
Yeah, use it intelligently, right?
That's right. And lastly, it's about skills, that we do not live in a vacuum. We need to interact effectively with the environment. If managing time is our struggle, we need to learn how to manage time effectively. If managing priorities and energy and stuff like that, we need to constantly equip ourselves with strategies and skills so that we can deal with the challenges that we have on hand. So these are the 6 clear strategies of how we can achieve happiness at our work and in our life.
Yeah, skills. I mean, people always say knowledge is power, right? But knowledge really is inspiration. You know, because the more you know, the more, you know, empowered you feel, the more valuable you feel.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's key, because a lot of people, they do not have that inspiration in life or inspiration at work, and they just drag their feet and they become functional.
Yeah, or they imagine that, you know, they're working for the company, when really, you know, you're really working for yourself. You're there to improve yourself.
That's right.
You're getting paid to be a better person.
Yeah, and one of the things that we always tell the people that we work with is, if you learn skills in managing people, in managing events and stuff like that, resources and all, at the end of the day, these are skills that you keep. Nobody can take that away from you. When you want to leave the workplace, the employer cannot say, return me all these things.
That's fantastic, and I wish we had more time to talk about this, but thank you. We've got the gist of it. Thank you very much, Benedict Lim, for coming in. Really appreciate our conversation today. And just to recap, that claps for you, right? First, C is for choose, so choose happiness. L is for laugh. A is to appreciate. P is for praise others. You know, happy people praise other people more as well. You know, that's strengths.
Doing what you're good at.
Yes, play up your strengths and stop downplaying it. And of course, yeah, right place, right time, and all that sort of thing at work. And finally, skills or knowledge. Yeah,
that's right.
Fantastic. Claps. Thank you very much, Ben, for coming in today.
Thank you, Eugene.
Yep. Yeah. Benedict Lim is Managing Director and Acting Chief Psychologist of iGROW, an award-winning psychological consulting firm specialising in employee well-being. And do email me if you have something to share as well that can help us, live happier, better lives as well. It's eugene@mediacorp.com.sg. I'm Eugene Loh. This has been A Slice of Life Hour on 938 Live.